Okay, when I first saw this story, I did laugh, but I gotta admit, it's a bit over the top to deploy a heat ray called the active, I think it's called the active denial system, against protesters. Maybe a little too much. But check out this story from NPR. Military police leaders weighed deploying heat ray against DC protesters. I don't understand why they're burying the lead. They didn't weigh doing it. They literally asked for one. I guess they didn't get it. All right, let's just read this story because, what? Okay. Hours before federal police officers cleared a crowded park near the White House with smoke and tear gas on June 1st, the lead military police officer in the Department of Defense for the D.C. region asked if the D.C. National Guard had a kind of military heat ray that might be deployed against demonstrators in the nation's capital, according to one of the most senior National Guard officers on the scene. In written responses to the House Committee on Natural Resources obtained by NPR, Major Adam DeMarco of the D.C. National Guard said he was copied on an email from the Provost Marshal of Joint Force Headquarters, National Capital Region. He was looking for two things: a long-range acoustic device, a kind of sound cannon known as an LRAD, and a device called the Active Denial System, or ADS. The ADS was developed by the military some 20 years ago as a way to disperse crowds. There have been questions about whether it worked or should be deployed in the first place. It uses millimeter wave technology to essentially heat the skin of people targeted by its invisible ray, literally deploying a giant microwave to microwave protesters. That sounds a bit insane. So, okay, they didn't do it, but I'm glad. I'm sure there's a lot of people laughing right now saying they should. Listen, man. We got to be careful about crowd control stuff that results in permanent injury. The LRADs are already questionable. Though they're not really ever used in a capacity that could seriously injure people. Sometimes they are, because some people are more susceptible. If you're not familiar with an LRAD, they take on a variety of forms. They're just really, really loud speakers. It's really impressive technology. It's kind of sad they made it a weapon, because you could take one of these things, you could blast some music. It's pretty cool. If you've not experienced an LRAD, let me explain it for you. I was in, I think it was Long Beach, and there was a protest, some Occupy thing. And I was probably like a full city block from the police. They have this thing mounted on top of their vehicle, and then you hear them make the announcement using it, saying, this is an unlawful assembly. You must disperse, go this way. From a block away, it sounded like a guy was standing next to me yelling at me. It really does. The way it like reaches you and bounces, it's really crazy. I got to say, it's impressive technology. But the other thing they'll do is they'll do a chirping thing where it goes, it makes this like fluctuating, really high pitched sound that's painful, and everyone covers their ears, and it causes disruption in the crowd. They go on to say, in his written response, DeMarco, who has sought whistleblower protection, quoted from an email he said was forwarded to him that originated from the Provost Marshal, which read, "The ADS can provide our troops a capability they currently do not have. The ability to reach out and engage potential adversaries at distance well beyond small arms range, and in a safe, effective, and non-lethal manner." Those are all technically the truth. I guess they're literally true, but this technology basically microwaves your skin, and it simulates like you're on fire. I don't know, man. Oh, man. I guess it's better than a hose, but it can cause permanent damage if someone doesn't know what they're doing. It's a legit weapon. It's a directed energy weapon. The email went on to say the ADS can direct a beam toward a group that provides a sensation of intense heat on the surface of the skin. The effect is overwhelming, causing an immediate repel response by the targeted individual. That's true. I mean, I don't know if they use these things overseas, but I've seen journalists, they like click it and you get hit and you go, and it's like, whoa, and they hold it on you. Supposedly it feels like you're on fire. They say, last month, the New York Times reported that U.S. border officials weighed deploying the so-called heat ray against migrants a few weeks before the 2018 elections. The Times reported that Kirstjen Nielsen, who was the Secretary of Homeland Security at the time, told an aide after the meeting, according to the Times story, that she would not authorize the use of such a device and that it should never be brought up again in her presence. Wow, that's amazing. That's really impressive. Yeah, I kind of think the heat ray goes over the top, man. We're not talking about taking out live ammo or anything. We're talking about microwaving people. So let's avoid that. Kirsten Nielsen, look at that. That's rad. Don't bring it up in her presence. Amazing. Yet according to DeMarco, it was something considered by DOD's lead military police officer the morning of June 1st after days of fiery protest and looting in Washington. DeMarco said in his written comments that he responded about half an hour later that the D.C. National Guard was not in possession of either an LRAD or an ADS. NPR made multiple calls and sent multiple emails to the Joint Force Headquarters, National Capital Region, for comment, but has not heard back. Now, I will say this. Having more options is better than having less. If we can provide options to law enforcement to end serious violence and crimes, it's not a bad thing. So chokeholds, right? Kind of a bad thing, but better than shooting someone, right? And therein lies the main point. Would it be a good thing if police have a heat ray active denial system? Yes and no. I lean towards yes in the sense, I lean towards mostly yes, actually, but hear me out. Mostly yes in the sense that if the right person knows when to use it and it allows us to avoid shooting people, then that's a really, really good thing. The problem, however, and why it's probably not a good idea to actually deploy, is that you're going to get some rookie dude who's going to mash the button and microwave a bunch of people when he probably shouldn't. But I don't know. You know what? I think there's a good reason why we have them. I think about not protest situations. I don't think you deploy this at a protest at all. But what about, when it escalates into a riot or straight up armed conflict? And in rioting, you can see people with guns shooting people like we saw in Chicago. If people have guns and you want to shut it down and you don't want to kill them, think about it. I think about that video that went viral from Chicago where the guy is shooting into the Gucci window. What would happen if the cops ran up and the cops only have this gun? Actually, no, I'm going to stop there. Here's a better one. There's a story right now about a rookie cop who's been indicted because he was approaching a woman, a homeless woman. She had a dog. The dog was a 40-pound lab mix and charged at the officer. So he pulled out his gun. He yelled, the first thing he yelled was, "Get a hold of your dog." When the dog charged him, he fired 3 rounds. I believe he hit the dog, but he also hit the woman in the chest. For this, he's been indicted. I believe he's been charged with a negligent homicide. And it's kind of crazy. It's like the dog was charging at him and he had a split-second panic. He doesn't know what kind of dog it is. He can't, it's far away. It's barking and snarling and charging at him. What does he do? And he accidentally shot this woman. He was a rookie cop. Now, I don't think anyone's going to be carrying around an ADS on their person. But I just think about how we could have avoided that circumstance. Is there a weapon we could provide to police, an option to stop a dog that would allow him to be safe without using his handgun? Maybe pepper spray? Maybe not. I don't know what you expect the dude to do, just lay back and get, mangled up by the dog. I don't know. He's being charged. So thinking about a circumstance like that, I think about this dude in Chicago who was firing into the window of the Gucci store. And what would happen if the police, pulled up in a vehicle and encountered a bunch of dudes with guns? Do they want to just start shooting everybody and then have a bunch of dead people? No, that's not a good thing. But what if they had an ADS and they just pressed a button and then everyone went, and they ran away? I mean, they're alive. We don't want them to die. We just want them to stop. So this could be an effective tool. Now, against protesters, nah. I guess the issue is they're talking about riots. They were saying that there was widespread rioting throughout the city, in which case, maybe it did make sense. Now, the immigrant thing, I think Kirsten Nielsen nailed it. Yeah, no way. Not in that capacity. Some of these people may be coming to the border because they're asylum seekers. And of course, we've heard they got to go to a port of entry. And maybe some of them can't or don't know. And that's why we detain, arrest, and stop them. Yeah, no, I'm not a fan of microwaving people. If you have a widespread riot, I don't know, it's a more difficult question. Because where's the line, right? And what we hear from, what they're actually talking about wasn't the peaceful protests in front of the White House. They were talking about ongoing riots. I don't know, man, it's tough, but I probably lean towards saying we shouldn't allow the police to deploy microwave cannons simply because they will find their way into the hands of regular old small town departments. They'll be abused and misused. I don't know, man. I think the sad reality of life is that there's just going to be conflict. And maybe it's better the cops don't have water cannons. Maybe it's better they don't even use pepper spray. Maybe it's better they have something like active denial. Maybe we have to realize that if you go to a riot or some kind of conflict, you might get injured no matter what. I mean, you're choosing to enter the fray. These things happen, whether intentional or otherwise. We don't want people to be permanently maimed or injured. And so we've got to figure out better ways of crowd control. We do. Because mobs go nuts, man. We've seen it. So what should the police do? Well, in this capacity, they never actually used it. The LRAD gets used all the time. I don't think the LRAD's a big deal, although it can be weaponized to make people bleed from their ears, and that's messed up too. What's the alternative, though? We allow the officers no defense and no way to deal with, mobs and mob mentality. You tell me, what do you think? I lean towards no on the heat ray thing, even recognizing options can be good for police. Maybe there are some circumstances where the departments should have them, but not for riots, not for protests. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll leave it there. I got a couple more segments coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.